My brothers and sisters, may the Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to the Lord.
Peter approached Jesus and asked him, Lord, if my brother sins against me, how often must I forgive him? As many as 7 times? Jesus answered, I say to you, not 7 times, but 77 times. That is why the kingdom of heaven may be likened to a king who decided to settle accounts with his servants. When he began the accounting, a debtor was brought before him who owed him a huge amount. Since he had no way of paying it back, his master ordered him to be sold, along with his wife, his children, and all his property, in payment of the debt. At that, the servant fell down, did him homage, and said, Be patient with me, and I will pay you back in full. Moved with compassion, the master of that servant let him go and forgave him the loan. When that servant had left, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him a much smaller amount. He seized him and started to choke him, demanding, Pay back what you owe. Falling to his knees, his fellow servant begged him, Be patient with me, and I will pay you back. But he refused. Instead, he had him put in prison until he paid back the debt. Now when his fellow servants saw what had happened, they were deeply disturbed, and so they went to their master and reported the whole affair. His master summoned him and said to him, You wicked servant, I forgave you your entire debt because you begged me to. Should you not have had pity on your fellow servant as I had pity on you? Then in anger his master handed him over to the torturers until he should pay back the whole debt. So will my heavenly Father do to you, unless each of you forgives your brother from your heart. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Even though theoretically there was the tradition of changing the attitude with regard to relationships, that we should love our neighbor as ourselves, that's found in the book of Deuteronomy, and Jesus, of course, even emphasized it even more. Even though this is the case, culture being what it is, more often than not, people still fell prey to the old way of thinking. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. So if somebody did something against you, you got back and you got even. And so when Peter comes to Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew today and says to him, May I forgive 7 times, I'm sure he thought he was really doing great things and was getting some good points with Jesus. Jesus, of course, surprises him and says, No, not 7 times, 70 times, 7 times. And of course, it isn't specifically the number, it is the fact that it's much more than we would anticipate we're expected to do. And in order to make the point, Jesus in turn gives him the parable about the master in his mercy forgives the debt of his servant only to find the servant himself not being willing to forgive the debt of another. Our mercy that God shows us has to somehow show itself in the mercy we show towards each other. Sometimes we get so taken up with the things that people have done against us and are focusing upon how, in a sense, we can kind of subtly get back and get even, that we miss the fact that God over and over again could really get even. He is more than patient with us, more than merciful with us, more than willing to give us 2nd, 3rd, and 4th chances. And so as we continue the season of Lent, we're reminded of the responsibility we have to somehow enflesh in our relationships with each other that same sense of compassion and mercy which God so readily brings to us in our experiences.